Theoretically, if you were able to bridge seamlessly from whistle to falsetto to mix to full voice, whatever that is, you could have a continuum of ice cream. Those would be those 4 stages. Of course, it makes more sense at a higher range. This kind of direction. Now let's see what ice cream sounds like on top of all of these coordinations. Whistle register. Not very powerful sound yet, but I think especially if you go higher in the range and maybe combine it with other effects, it can be a nice little spicy thing. In falsetto, it's weird because it doesn't feel like creaking anymore. It feels like pushing into it, but not allowing it to be metallic yet. In a non-metallic mix, like this direction, it just results in the Chris Lipe sound. And now if I try for a very full fry scream, I think that would be even more intense and probably less sustainable. So I guess a safer approach to fry screaming, especially if you're a beginner, might be to always start at the stable, clean coordination, one energy level higher. Because creaking, or true vocal fold chaos, which is the foundation of any fry scream, right, always happens when there's a mismatch between the energy you put in, so like your support level, your subglottic pressure, and your vocal tract shaping. So the way you set up your throat, your tongue, your lips. Like for example, if you're going for a very confident sound, as if you're giving a speech, it's a metallic quality. So that means there's lots of narrowing above your vocal folds that resists lots of subglottic pressure. But if you sort of under-energize it, as if you've just woken up, we have this kind of morning voice. Or also when you're tired, and the voice just goes to this kind of raspy quality without you actually planning to do so. That is your vocal folds compensating for that mismatch of sub and supraglottic pressure levels. So the energy you put in and your vocal tract shaping. So now that we know that, we can use it to our advantage. We can start on a clean note, like and then under-energize it, or think that we're reducing the volume without actually getting soft. So we're not going to this breathy whisper quality, but we're trying to do the impossible, namely maintaining the same quality while getting quieter. And what's going to happen instead is our vocal folds are going to change their vibratory pattern into a more complex one. So they go to creaking. In this case, a very regular one. You can hear the octave as a subharmonic interval. And if we want it to be less regular, we can under-energize it even more. So we're going to put less support energy behind it. And we're going to get more of that vinyl crackling noise. And if we do the same thing, but we start from a clean falsetto, we get the foundation for a quiet little fry scream. Yeah. And now I just added a little twang and a bit of false fold constriction because that tends to make it more stable and smoother for me. And also it helps to project further, even though it's not very loud, like yeah. It's maybe a bit above my speech volume, but kind of the same energy level still. Now if I want to make it even fuller in that quiet fry technique, I can actually combine it with other effects like distortion, or rattle, to get a more gurgly sound, but that's only the quiet fry technique. If we start from more of a mixed coordination, like it's definitely thinned out to the point where it's almost the same as falsetto, but we still feel a bit of that pull. There's a bit of extra narrowing and a bit of extra pressure behind it, and if we maintain that while under-energizing it the same way that we did before, it's gonna break up like And if we manage to stabilize this instability, and I know it's paradox, but if we can keep our vocal folds right in between of this stable mix and this stable falsetto, and have it be kind of like a Schrodinger's cat of vocal fold mechanism, we can have different stages of grid between almost atonal and only a very slight rasp that might cut through the guitars and bass and drums in a very subtle way only. Yow! 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 We can use that. So if the Melissa Cross technique is a quiet fry scream, you could call this one a medium fry. It definitely has a bit more of that yelly character to it already, but it's still not super loud. So if we want a really earth-shattering primal yell scream, we'll have to start from an even fuller clean coordination first. And of course, the rules of efficient belting apply. So open vowels, this kind of bitey mouth position, lots of energy, and in order to resist that high pressure, we need lots of narrowing. So twang. We'll also have to allow the larynx to rise. We'll basically make it the chipmunk version of a yell. A, 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 A! This still feels completely fine. It does take a lot of muscle effort though. We have to distribute the energy to our whole body, so not only the vocal folds are working. Now once you feel comfortable with that clean belt, you can try to let it break up, similar to how we've done it with the non-metallic mix. It will feel like breaking even more. It will have even less in common with creaking, and probably it's not going to be possible to get totally atonal screams. It's going to be more of a yell scream thing that you'll just not achieve by doing false cut screams, which is why we still group it under fry. But the result is going to be more like, yeah! And actually, you can hear that falsetto pitch in there, and you can hear a bit of that yelly belt, and even a bit of this false fold subharmonic in there, because of course the false folds and maybe even the arytenoid cartilages are going to jump in to help. It's not a pure fry scream anymore in the sense of just creaking. It's an effect combination, and it's fry based. So instead of the smooth white noise we had with the quiet fry technique, now it just resembles a very desperate scream with all its inconsistencies and vulnerabilities, right? And this kind of sound is not something that you're going to do in technical death metal when you want to convey control. The opposite within any fry-based effects would probably be the hypercompressed scream, which you can of course use as an approach to pitch screaming in that range too, but it's just very different in expression, both sensation-wise to the performer, but also to what the audience takes out of it and what they resonate with it like, right? So basically, to sum it up a bit, we have many different possibilities of approaching what people would call a fry scream. We have yow, the quiet fry scream, yow, more of that medium fry scream, and yow, this very desperate and emotional loud fry scream. And then of course we have the combinations with distortion and rattle, or the hypercompressed fry scream, which relies on false fold constriction rather than twang. And even though all of them are supposed to sound like what they are, namely a scream, all of them are supposed to feel comfortable. I wouldn't recommend doing them until total exhaustion, because when we are exhausted we make mistakes. So you really got to make sure you start off precisely and you continue to do those screams precisely. But if you actually act responsibly with those screams and really listen to your body feedback also, because your body's going to tell you when you're doing something wrong, right? Then nothing can happen other than good music.